What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about some of my favorite older flagship phones. This is going to be part one, just giving you guys price updates and my updated thoughts on all of these phones. So let's go ahead and get started with the iPhone XS. When I bought this one, it was around like 330 bucks. These have come down in price tremendously. Around 265 bucks is the cheapest. I see it right now on Amazon, and also on eBay they're trending for around like 250 bucks as well. That is just an awesome deal, guys, to get this type of quality phone for 250 bucks. 260 is pretty amazing. So I still like the design on here. It's a very timeless design as well, very classy looking design. Stainless steel frame, IP68 dust and water resistant, glass back. I still think it looks really good, extremely comfortable as well too. This has the Super Retina OLED display. It's HDR10 at 5.8 inches. It's a 1080p plus panel with 458 for the PPI, so it's a very sharp panel, and personally one of my favorite panels for these older iPhones. So it's got a better display even than the iPhone 11. Otherwise, that would be my favorite pick. But yeah, so I really like the XS display, just having that OLED in a high resolution. This phone is going to get the iOS 16 update, and this phone should get around 3, maybe 4 more years of major OS updates. As far as like the iPhone 8 is even on iOS 16, so I can see this going at least for another 4 years. So that is really awesome. So this has the Apple A12 chip, and it's still a blazing fast phone when it comes to performance. It just does not miss a beat as far as your navigating, as far as multitasking, gaming on here. I've done a gaming test. It can still play PUBG at high settings. It can pretty much play anything at high settings still. It's a very capable chip still in 2022. So you do have 64 gigs on the base storage and 4 gigs of RAM. This does have stereo speakers, which are pretty good, have excellent bass quality, pretty good mids and highs. You have your Apple Pay on here. You have your Face ID, which works flawlessly. So I do want to touch on the camera. So it is a dual camera setup. It's a 12 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel telephoto lens. It does 2x optical zoom with 4K 24 through 60, and then you have a 7 megapixel selfie cam that does 1080p 60. So basically the XS cameras, they're still pretty good in 2022. Also, considering the price that you pay, I actually think that the video on here is extremely solid as well. I think it takes better video than most mid-range phones. Now, as far as the cameras, yes, it is missing like a ultra wide lens, which a lot of people prefer, but the telephoto lens is really not that bad. It's not a bad trade-off. So I really like images, dynamic range, color. It all still looks pretty good in 2022. I don't think anyone would complain. So this phone does have a 2,658 milliamp battery with fast charging at 15 watts and wireless charging. Basically, mine's battery health is around 86%. I'm still able to get 6 hours of screen on time on here, so the battery life is pretty good on this device for sure. So definitely check out the XS. All right, so next is the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. It's $542 right now on Amazon, and then we have the standard Note as well too. The standard Note 20 that is also around 400 bucks. So I thought that was a pretty good deal if you want the smaller version of this phone. But guys, this is such an awesome phone. One of my favorite Samsung phones, older flagship phones to recommend to people. It's really aged extremely well. So we have a beautiful design on here, stainless steel frame, also IP68 dust and water resistant. Of course, built-in stylus on here as well. It's super fast, very accurate stylus. But this is a massive phone at 6.9 inches for the display. It's 1440p, 496 for the PPI. It's a dynamic AMOLED, 120 Hz, but only at 1080p, and it's HDR10 plus. So it's just a beautiful panel on here. So anybody that's into digital artwork, or you just like to just use the stylus to navigate, the Note series is always a great pickup to definitely consider. Alright, so this phone, it does have the Android 12 update, and it will be getting the Android 13 update as well too, so that's also very exciting. And then we have the Snapdragon 865 chip in the Adreno 650. Basically, this phone is still blazing fast. There's really nothing that this phone can't play at high settings. It does a great job with just multitasking, bouncing in and out of apps. It's a very smooth phone, and performance, you don't really have to worry about anything. Alright, so this phone does come with micro SD card support as well. It's actually the last Note to have micro SD card support, so that's definitely another plus. as well. So you do have 128 gigs of internal storage and 12 gigs of RAM. Now there is a 256 gigabyte version as well too that you can kind of easily find. You might have to pay a little bit more. But you do have stereo speakers on here, which sound really great, great bass quality. No headphone jack, NFC on board. We also have the fingerprint scanner under the display. It works very fast as well too. And then all of your bells and whistles are still here that the S22 Ultra has, like Samsung desktop support, verse wireless charging, secure folders, just everything that you would find you still have on here. Now the big thing with this phone is actually the camera. So you have a pretty awesome camera setup. It's a 108 megapixel standard, so you get some very well detailed shots. You also have a 12 megapixel periscope telephoto on here that does 5x zoom, and then you get a max 50x hybrid zoom. It also shoots in a 12 megapixel ultra wide as well too. It does have 8K 24 on here, and then you have a 10 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K 60. This is still a very capable camera and still an excellent phone for taking zoom shots as well too. So if you take a lot of shots, let's say you're at a sporting event, you need to get closer to your subject, this is a great phone for that. So definitely take that into consideration. Also, like I said, it takes very high resolution photos as well too with a 108 megapixel lens. But in general, it's just a great performer. It still takes flagship quality photos here. So this phone also does have a very nice battery life. So it's a 4,500 milliamp battery, 25 watt charging with wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. Basically, you can get around 6 hours of screen on time pretty easily with this phone, if not a little bit more. But this is a phone that I've never actually had die on me if I took it out. So definitely just a great performer overall, and I love that the price is slowly just coming down on here. I think we'll see this around $500 by the end of the year for sure. All right, so next is going to be the OnePlus 7 Pro. Now I like Amazon refurbished renewed version of this phone. They're going for like $250, but if you want the best deal or the cheapest deal, check out eBay's deals, man. You can find this for $180, easily $200, $219 for a really good one. If you pay a little bit more, you can get the McLaren edition as well too, which is really sweet. Yeah, it's just an awesome. They got a bunch of awesome deals on eBay, so check that out. But yeah, so this phone has glass back, aluminum frame as well. The best thing about this phone is the display. I've got a ton of videos. You guys want to check those out on the channel of this phone. It's Fluid AMOLED, 90 hertz. HDR10 plus, 6.67 inches, 1440p display, 516 for the PPI. The highlight with this is that it has no punch hole or no notch on it, so it gives you that really nice immersive experience. It does it with the pop-up selfie cam on here. You also have Android 12 coming to this device as well too, which we're going to be covering. The Snapdragon 855 on here and the Adreno 640 performs still really well for me. It's still a very fast phone. It feels like this since the day I got it. Just fast and fluid, very smooth on here, and hopefully the Android 12 update will make everything even more smooth. So this does not have any SD card support. The version that I got is 128 and 6 gigs, but normally the ones that you will see online will be 256 and 8 gigs. So definitely watch out for that. Make sure you get that 256 version. Also, you do have stereo speakers, which actually sound pretty good. Good bass. Had no issues with that. No headphone jack. NFC is on board. The fingerprint scanner is extremely fast, and what I love about this phone is you can also use the pop-up selfie cam to unlock your phone, and it always amazes people when they see the little camera come out as well too. So that's always like a little fun thing about this phone, is that they actually let you do that. So as far as the camera, so not my favorite cameras on the list, but still very capable and still very good cameras. But definitely, if you're looking for the best camera on the list, I would go with the Samsung or maybe the LDV60, which we'll talk about. But this one does have a 48 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel telephoto, that's 3x, and then 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K 60, and then the pop-up selfie cam is 16 megapixels at 1080p 30. It takes good shots for what it is. Definitely, I personally was using this phone for a very long time as my main shooter, even though I was saying that it doesn't have the best cameras. It still takes really good photos and great lighting. Only when you pull it out of good lighting, it can kind of take just kind of like colors that are just off. But other than that, it's still a very good shooter in my opinion. So this phone does have very good battery life. It's a 4,000 milliamp battery. I never had this phone die on me, when I'm out. So that's always a good thing. And also very fast charging at 30 watts as well too. But no wireless charging on this phone, unfortunately. So the 7 Pro is just an awesome phone for you guys to consider. Now next is going to be the Galaxy S10 5G. So basically, you can go with any of the Galaxy S10 phones. I have videos on all of them. So you have the S10, the S10e, the S10 Plus, and the S10 5G. The S10 5G is slowly becoming my favorite out of the bunch. So let's go ahead and get into this one. You can find this one easily for well under 300 bucks. They're still kind of like up there, so it'll be like close to 280 or something like that. I'll have all the links down below. So basically the same design though, but aluminum frame, glass back, IP68. This one has the biggest display out of the S10 series. It's a 6.67 inch dynamic AMOLED display, HDR10 plus, 1440p, 502 for the PPI. It's a big, beautiful display with a really thin bezels, nice design on here. It does have a really big, almost looks like a triple punch hole up there, but your eyes sort of ignore it pretty fast. This phone does have Android 12, One UI 4.1, the Snapdragon 855, and the Adreno 640 on here. So here's the thing about this phone: no SD card support. You do get 256 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM. So do note that if you take a lot of storage, you want to get an S10 Plus or something else with SD card support. Me personally, I never run out of storage because I don't, download and take a lot of video and stuff like that. So this phone does have the best sounding stereo speakers that I've heard. At least one of the best. It is extremely incredible. Now you do have a headphone jack on here as well, and all your bells and whistles are still on here as far as the under the display fingerprint sensor, Samsung desktop support, and basically everything you would find on the newer Galaxy phones. So the cameras on here are pretty good. It's a quad camera setup, a 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel telephoto with 2x optical zoom, and then a 16 megapixel ultra wide. And then you also have a 0.3 depth sensor along with 4K 60 video on the front and back. And then you have a 10 megapixel selfie cam as well too. So image quality is pretty much on par with what you would expect here. You get some pretty good shots as far as dynamic range. As far as detail is pretty good. The coloring on the different lenses is pretty good as well too. And overall, it takes great shots for an older flagship phone. Battery life is also very impressive on this phone. It's a 4,500 milliamp battery with 25-watt charging, reverse wireless charging, and wireless charging. This is the best battery life for any of the Galaxy S series phones, S10 series phones. I get well over 6 hours of screen on time with this phone. It has excellent standby time as well too. The best standby time that I experience out of all of the S10 series phones. So definitely consider the S10 5G. All right, last we got the LG V60, and not too much of a price drop on this phone. It's still pretty much at the $250 price point. I do expect these to come down in price, close to $200 by the end of the year. Hopefully going into next year, these will be extremely cheap. But this is still an awesome phone, probably one of the most featured packed phones on the list. It's got aluminum frame, glass back, IP68 dust and water resistant, just a extremely sturdy build. A pretty big 6.8 inch display, POLED HDR10 plus, 1080p 395 for the PPI. The main selling point with the V60 is the dual screen display. You can find it on eBay. And yeah, it just turns the phone into a multitasking beast. So it's like basically using two phones at once. Android 12 has been great so far on this phone, extremely smooth. You do have the upcoming Android 13 update. Hopefully LG will keep their promise on that, and we will get that, for this device. We do have the Snapdragon 865, Adreno 650 on here. Extremely fast phone. I do have a full gaming test for you guys to check out. Just type it in the search bar. And yeah, it just does great, plays everything still at high settings. Micro SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage, 8 gigs of RAM. Very loud sounding stereo speakers on here. And one of the highlights with the V60 is also the headphone jack with the quad DAC for audiophiles. People that just love high quality, listening to high quality music. This phone is going to be great for that. You also have NFC on here. Under the display, fingerprint sensor on here works fine. Also, the cameras on here are also, I believe, like maybe my second favorite to the Note 20 Ultra on this list. It's a 64 megapixel standard, 13 megapixel ultra wide, and then a 0.3 depth sensor. Shoots in 8K 30 with a 10 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 30. Basically, this takes some of my favorite coloring or image processing. It gives you very natural colors, especially with skin tones. Is something that I always appreciate. And it just takes great shots overall. The ultra wide is very close to the main lens in terms of color and detail. It just takes some really great shots on this phone. So I'm always happy to take photos with the V60, and it also has an excellent manual mode as well too. This phone has excellent battery life, the best battery life on this list, with a 5,000 milliamp battery with wireless charging. This phone can easily do all day battery life, almost pretty much like a day and a half. It has excellent standby time as well too. So like I said, the best battery life on this list. So the V60 is just an awesome device for you guys to consider. So be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.